What burdens do you carry with you? Prepare the throwaway accounts. I just got a letter from the Red Cross last night informing me that the blood I donated 2 weeks ago could not be used because I tested positive for the hepatitis B core antibody. I just turned 17. Go to a doctor and get it checked out. One of my best friends got a letter that said that she tested positive for HIV on hers. She went to the doctor and they ran several tests that all came back clean. The Red Cross mixed her blood test up with someone else's. I never wanted siblings, but ended up with 2 younger brothers. Father fricked off and only sees them on holidays. The youngest was diagnosed with autism, and I have grown up, like since I was 7, with my mom telling me that I have to be responsible for him when she gets old and dies, having to raise him half the time anyway while my mom was at work. I have grown to really resent that. My brother became bigger and stronger than me by the time I hit middle school, and had a huge, volatile temper. Any little thing would trigger a freak out that would usually end up with me in my room holding the door closed so he couldn't burst in and attack me. I tried fighting back a few times, but always got in trouble for it. I was a 7th and 8th grader during this time, and I don't think anyone should have to go through that kind of thing, let alone some short, skinny girl. I moved out of the house when I was 17, 800 miles away for college to get away from my family. Lately, the long-term planning talk for my brother comes up. He's got his temper pretty much under control and is slated to graduate his SPED program in high school soon, but he will never be able to live on his own. He has the mentality and naivety of a 5-year-old, is obsessed with little kid stuff, and probably won't be able to hold down any sort of real job. I can't refuse to take care of him as he gets older, but it will ruin my life when the time comes. I live in an entirely different place, hardly make enough money to support myself, and honestly, I don't think I could go through what I went through as a kid again. I want to have my own life. I hear these horror stories about caretakers of disabled kids a lot. There is a lot of isolation and depression that can lead to murder-suicides or the accidental deaths of either the disabled person or the caretaker. I live under constant terror that someday I'll end up in that situation. Several years ago, I was living in Pennsylvania, near my best friend. Now, a little background. He'd grown up being somewhat of a freak. He was impossibly tall, 6'8", had a legit case of Asperger's, not an internet self-diagnosis. He was actually on the light end of the autism spectrum and had real trouble discerning emotion, and perpetually battled social anxiety and severe depression. He hid it well, always being boisterous and outgoing, seeming to always be this huge, unflappable grizzly bear. I found myself spiraling into a depression when I lost my job, and being depressed, I started getting stupid and selfish. When we'd go out and do things, I'd get mad at him for doing things that embarrassed me, things that I found fun. I got mad at him for making me leave the house in general. I got mad at him for being a good friend while I wallowed in my own depression like a retarded idiot. Eventually, I got delayed on a job down in Virginia, and I just kind of moved. I didn't ask him if he wanted to get out of his parents' place and come with. I didn't ask him if he wanted me to stay. I just left, had him help me move out, said goodbye, said I'd visit at some point, and got out. I never once thought about his feelings. It never occurred to me what an butthole I was being. It never entered my mind that his other best friend had, just a few months prior, died of a necrotizing fasciitis infection followed by a severe blood clot, and now his other best friend was just abandoning him. In March of 2009, he died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. I killed him. I may not have pulled the trigger, but knowing he was depressed, knowing how important I was to his life, knowing that I could have stayed, could have been a good friend, could have helped pull him out of the dark depths he was in from his life in general and losing a good friend, I abandoned him. His blood is on my hands. It's a stain I will never be able to wash away, and it's a debt I will never be able to repay. I don't think I'm the same person anymore. I think that butthole part of me is dead. I just wish it would have died about a year sooner, so that Ian, also known as Zergling Minor, would still be alive. No throwaway. I don't think one would be right for this. TL. Doctor, it's my fault my uncle is dead. My uncle was living with us and having terrible headaches. He was in the shower when I was leaving for school. I said goodbye to him and all I heard was a thump. I thought this was nothing, but it turns out he had a cerebral aneurysm. He laid there for hours until my mum got home and found him. If I had checked, he might still be alive. Sorry any mistakes and grammar problems, I'm typing this from my phone. They are instantaneous deaths pretty much. No worries dude, the headaches was the swelling. When it pops short of it popping in it is a quick and instant death. I was 7. My sister Lily was 4. We had just moved into our new house about a week before. One day my dad was parking the car and he told us to go stand by the little fire pit that was in the backyard. We had just used it last night for a bonfire. The fire pit was about 2 feet across and ringed by stones. I started jumping across it and playing around. Everything was fine until I dared my sister to jump across. Lily tripped and landed in the ashes, arms down. That was when I learned that even though the ashes were cool, there was still hot coals underneath. I can still remember her scream. She was only 4 and I knew she had never experienced pain like that before. I didn't think. I reacted. I picked her up and pulled her out. My dad heard Lily's scream and stopped the car. When he came over he saw me pulling my sister out of the ash pit. Her arms were covered in burns. My dad brought Lily inside. I remember her screaming hysterically while he called 911. I didn't know what to do. I waited and watched my dad try to help my sister the best he could until help arrived. The ambulance arrived. We were taken to a hospital 45 minutes away. I sat in the front seat with the driver. I remember crying and telling her that it was my fault that my sister was hurt because I dared her to jump. I remember saying very clearly, "My parents are going to kill me." When we reached the hospital I was left with my mother. When she asked what happened, I told her Lily fell. I was scared that if she knew it was my fault she would punish me. Lily had extensive 3rd and 4th degree burns. It was so bad that she was taken via helicopter to a hospital in another state. She was there for a week. During that week it was just my father and me in the house. My mother must have told him that Lily fell and I pulled her out. He never asked me what happened, but told me I was a great big sister. 10 years later Lily still has scars on her arms. When I asked her what happened, she told me that she didn't remember, but mom and dad told her that she fell and I pulled her out. I never told her that I was stupid and I dared her to jump over the fire pit. I was on the jury that convicted a man of molesting children. I am still so certain he was innocent. Eventually it went to a split decision as me and only one other were on his side in that room. I'll never forget his name. I suspect this will get buried, so I'm not going to bother with a throwaway name. It's pretty much an open secret in my family anyways. I'm named after my dad's mistress. I'm several years younger than my older siblings. I know my parents' marriage was on shaky grounds at that point and I've always known I was pretty much brought into this world in a semi-failed attempt to save their marriage. By semi-failed, they stayed married for years after, but basically lived 2 separate lives. When I was 12, I asked my mom who I was named after. Every one of my siblings and cousins were named after someone else in the family. Aunts and uncles had their first and middle names taken to use as first and middle names for the next generation. Except me. It would always frustrate me that I didn't know who my name was from. So finally I asked my mom point blank. That's when I found out I wasn't my dad's youngest child. While my dad was overseas on a deployment, about a month before I was born, my mom received a paternity suit requesting a DNA test. The name of the prospective mother was on the suit. My mom had been planning to give me a hippie name that would really pee him off but decided that making me a permanent reminder of his infidelity was a much better idea. What a selfish, crappy thing to do to your child. I'm just passively waiting to die. I've come to terms with the fact that my depression isn't going anywhere and I can't die so that I don't hurt others. Even on good days I'm just running out the clock. Hi, I understand you. I kinda am you. Maybe not so much that I am looking for an out right now, just that if I happen to walk in front of a car or OD on my meds I won't mind dying. I wish that my father had died. He was an alcoholic, also beating my mother. I hated him so much. I wanted him to die so badly. I've even came to the point when I was praying for it, despite the fact I didn't believe in God. He tried to kill himself once. I was heading to the place he was at. I didn't know if he was actually dead or not. During this few minutes I could not feel anything but relief. But nope. He didn't die. I was disappointed. I was 17 years old. I feel like the worst person ever. He has changed. He's working on himself. I still do feel a lot of resentment, but I'm glad he's not dead. It wasn't a one-time thing. This went for a couple of years. Firstly, as a child, I was trying to trade with God. Please, kill him and I won't be mean to Susie. I will learn more. I won't eat candies anymore. But those things were silly. I realized that death is more expensive. So I promised to leave all my friends. Not to kiss anyone ever. Not to hug mom anymore. Tons of stuff. He never responded. I figured out he's not real because I have even offered my death. And nothing happened. I was 10 years old by the time. Watching my father generated only one thing in my head. Looped message of hatred. Mantra. Die. 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 Please. Die. 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 We barely even talked to each other. I was sometimes afraid I would have a slip of tongue and tell him this. I actually never did. I'm really glad. I can't imagine anything worse than your child telling you to die and meaning it. He wouldn't return home for a couple of days and nobody knew where he was. That was the times I was truly happy. I was getting more excited every single day he was gone. I was hoping every call to be the Miss XXX. We've got some bad news. I was sure he had to have car accident one day, since he was driving drunk for sure. I planned everything. His funeral. I had this really nice clothes to put on. They'd totally fit the occasion. I think that is a very normal reaction to the man who makes your life a misery. Glad he is doing better, but you shouldn't feel any guilt for your thoughts when he was an abusive alcoholic. No throwaway because I'm honestly not ashamed, but I've been pretty aware since I was about 10 that my mother doesn't love me, let alone like me. She has rarely said a kind word to me that wasn't a backhanded compliment. I had a speech impediment as a kid and she would actually ridicule me for it and tell me not to talk to people unless I had to because I was embarrassing myself. I thought there was something wrong with me until I was about 20, when new friends finally asked me why my mom was so freaking crazy. It would be so much easier if she treated my sister the same way, but it's just me. I try not to give a frick anymore, but it's still pretty rough knowing the one person you're supposed to always be able to go to it a straight up B while drunk. She recently told me she did those things because she thought my teachers praised me too much for my intellect and she didn't want me to get too cocky, so she personally took me down a peg. Well, freaking mission accomplished, I guess. Where do I start? I was abused, yelled, a bit beaten, in a big home in the middle of freaking nowhere, and everybody would either ignore that, not do a thing, or simply not be able to understand. Being freaking hillbillies. All my mental traumas led me to, among others, an attempted suicide at 14, panic attacks, dropping out of college. I recently learned that maybe it wasn't my fault, but I'm gonna be 26 soon. Still nobody is gonna care a single bit about me and can't hold a job. Social services couldn't give a dang. Apparently, I really don't know what to do, and the fact that I'm the only one openly claiming that they're insane makes me the singled out in their eyes. I can't do anything. It's a miracle if I can get up in the morning. I can't think straight. My abortion. I was 16 when I fell pregnant and had a surgical abortion at 7 weeks. I know I did the right thing as I was in absolutely no position to raise a child, but I still can't shake the guilt. This isn't gonna be as bad as some others, but whatever. I was after walking home from school and was sweaty and exhausted from the heat of the day and having to wear a very thick school uniform in this weather. The fact that my bag was breaking my collarbone because it was so heavy with books didn't help, so I was in a pissy mood. Normally my dog would always come and greet me after arriving home. When I got in the front door he came running up to me, barking in excitement. The barking just got to me after being in a crap mood, and I slapped him on the nose so hard he yelped and I told him to shut up, then went to my room like a moody little shithead. He just stared at me in disbelief as if he should never welcome me home again, but he still did, every single day I got home. It's only in these years after he died that I remember that day as one of the biggest regrets of my life. It also doesn't help that I wasn't there for him when he was put down. TL. Doctor slapped my dog so hard he yelped. Felt bad about it ever since. A bit about me. I have always been alone in my life aside from my direct family. Moved around a lot but never been a loner. Always managed to be popular, etc. I have lived in some sketchy places in more than a few countries where I learned how to defend myself and handle tough situations. Story. I was living in North America and I had turned 18 and I was off to college. I failed my second year of college due to not going to lectures and just partying. At the same time, my parents had moved literally to the other side of the world from me. So what is the logical step for a 19-20-year-old guy to do? I moved to Buenos Aires since I had a friend and a bit of money. There I got a job, through my friend's dad, in the drug industry. I was fluent in 4 languages, which was useful, sometimes, and I can be pretty charming and confident even when I have no clue what I am doing. I got my butt kicked many times, and learned to do some real butt kicking along with others acts of violence. Did heavy drugs. This went on for 2 years. Then one day I packed my bags and left. I had always been so angry at life before those 2 years, probably due to always feeling so alone in life. But after those 2 years, it's like I let all my anger out. I finished college. I felt as if I was in prison for 2 years. The world looks so much more different after those 2 years. Read some post about a guy who wanted his dad dead, and I have a similar story. When I was younger, like toddler age to preteen, I seriously hated my older sister. She was extremely mean just for the fun of it to me and my family. My white parents were too scared to actually punish her and she would walk all over them. Sometimes when she was supposed to watch over me she would beat me up and I would tell on her, but my parents thought I was always making it up. I would hate her so much I would literally wish for her to die. I specifically remember being at the mall with my sister and my mother one day and seeing a huge fountain with a ton of coins thrown in. I took a penny, flicked it in and wished my sister to be dead. Now I am 20 and I still dislike my sister. She is about 24, is addicted to painkillers and nitro. She dropped out of college and sits on her butt all day smoking cigarettes and mooching off my parents, of course no job. I no longer wish for her to be dead, for one because she doesn't frick with me anymore, but also because I pity her. I have never met such a pitiful human being. TLDR. I used to wish for my sister to die but now I simply pity her. I'm 28 and apologize for the length of this post. Maybe it will help to write some of it down. I've given up good jobs, 6 figures, to stay near my family and was fired at an unfortunate time from a bad job last year, under 30k. I've since had difficulty getting a new one despite a solid resume, education, and good personality, but I make ends meet with odd jobs. During the past 15 years I've given up quite a lot to look out for my family. Several family members have become severely ill and I've had to look after them more and more, to the point where they are virtually housebound and we are just getting into the worst yet. Cancer again. Hundreds of trips to the doctor mere months after a different illness that went on for a year. Another family member has decided that they are more into drugs than their family and I've been hiding the fact that they've been in jail numerous times from those who are sick. A little slew of constant mischief for over 3 years. I'm positive that this knowledge would be more than those who are sick can handle, and so I lie about this person's activities and do a lot of work for the family business for free to make up for their absence. I'm forced to do the work of 2 people, but I'm at my physical limit. In the midst of the chaos of looking after multiple houses, people, and finances, I've lost my own life. I have never dated, though I am in great shape and a decent enough looking guy. I have plenty of good friends but all of them are ignorant to a good chunk of this information. They see the person outside, the successful, smart athlete who organizes clubs and always looks at the positive. I do not wish to burn those who I could confide in with these problems. They are newly married and happy. I'm the steady one in the family. I do not get upset even though my family and numerous others confide their darkest fears and secrets to me. I do not confide in anyone, because there is no one else to listen. I've been put in charge of everyone's finances, which will hopefully lead me to bailing out some of those in debt. My mom and aunt will not be able to support themselves after they retire, so I gradually paid things off for them and helped manage my grandparents' investments. But the stock market crash made that difficult. I did manage to save about half. In light of all this, I've realized that my life has been put on hold, and despite my best efforts to break out of the things holding me back, I simply can't leave all of those who need me behind. Do I understand what I am sacrificing? Yes. But do I feel terribly alone sometimes? More than I can state. I know that my window of opportunity to meet someone is closing, and I know there is an inevitability to all of this. In spite of that, things will remain the same, and I will still be there for my family. Unfortunately, there is more going on than what is in this post. Wait, so OP shares his darkest and most emotional memory with Reddit, and all you people do is answer with pathetic jokes for some useless karma? I don't even. Reddit's real freaking weird, bro. I've seen people unload the most tragic events of their lives and get comments that are 100% puns and grammar corrections. I'm an orphan, so there is so much pressure on me to do everything correctly, because if I don't, no one will be there to bail me out. You can have parents and be in that situation too. Believe me, my advice, easily given, would be to not view it as a burden but just a fact of living. Now I shall read and reread that till it sticks. Sometimes I like to think I carry burdens and that my life was as hard. Then I read stories like this, talk to people around town, and I've slowly begun to realize that someone always has it worse than you. I don't always think like this. Sometimes I need a reminder of how insignificant I am. Sometimes I am reminded how significant I could be, or what I may have done that made an impact. I don't know what it all means, but I hope this made someone stop and think. Well said. I often follow the same logic. Like a lot of people, I'm outwardly pretty successful and charismatic. Throughout college I've made excellent grades, maintained a great relationship with my high school sweetheart, coming on 5 years, and my family, always had the best internships, and I'm in great shape. I also cope with stress of this perfection by slicing myself to pieces and starving and purging and spending about 90% of my time alone. Well, my I hate my dad story kinda looks weak in comparison now. He was a drunk. In fact, I don't think I ever called him dad. If I was talking about him to my brother, or my friends, he was always either the drunk or P-drunk dong. He came down with I think liver cancer in 2008. I am not entirely sure that's what it was, because I don't really give a crap, and I only ever visited him in the hospital once, and at that point he was basically dead, but kept alive with machines. I'm glad he's gone. My life is so much better without him. He never taught me anything that a good dad teaches their son. I learned to be a good person by watching him, and doing the complete opposite. Jesus. I'm sorry OP, but I have to say your mother sounds like a terrible parent who sends their child away for something as selfish as not wanting to be reminded of their late husband. You were a child who needed maternal care. It's in no way your fault that you upset your sister and mother, who sowed the seeds of their own misery by lying to you in the first place. I'm glad to hear you're living a happy life now though, man. Dang glad for you. I think the biggest burden I carry with me is my defense mechanism to cope with sadness. If a family member dies, if something is troubling me, I hide it. I'm very thick-skinned and try to make jokes about a bad situation even if it eats away at me. What's worse is that I hate to project negativity around me. It's stupid, I know, but I just don't have time to be upset, it seems. When I was in high school, I was in a car crash and got some minor brain damage. Nothing to interfere with my personality or motor skills or anything, but I have an atrocious memory now. I can remember fairly vaguely my life up to the accident, but every day I was feeling confused and dazed, not recognizing people until reminded, not knowing what I'd done the day before or what I was doing. I started to carry a journal, and every time anything happened, I wrote it down in there or try and remember long enough to write it down without feeling rude. I have sketches of all important faces, marked with their name and essential information. I'd grown to be a pretty good sketcher of faces. What scares me is that I had the capability to forget anything that I wanted, fairly effectively. I could rip out a bad breakup, erase an awful day, or edit out months of my life. And I did. All the time. My memory has gotten quite a bit better, but it's still easy to forget things, and I have to work really freaking hard to do simple things, like study for an exam. But I don't know what I did on the days that I ripped out, years ago, and I don't know whether I am who I am or just a character that I wrote up when I was 19. TL. DR. Brain injury. Can't remember crap. I take freaking great notes. My mother has tried to kill herself 3 times, all of which I discovered when the third time actually happened. The first time I was 8, then about 12, then 17. Shook me extremely deeply to realize she had been trying to end her own life, pretty much throughout my childhood. I keep telling my mom that I'm studying diligently for the MCATs, and that I'm looking for a better job now that I'm finished with my undergraduate degree, when really all I've been doing for the past 2 years is playing video games and getting by the skin of my teeth. MCAT is actually a fun test, you can do it man. Clear off some space and make tea and you can do MCAT questions for hours. My greatest burden is that underneath my normal calm and or sad self, there is a part of me that is an evil xenophobic. He doesn't come out very often, but when he does, people get hurt, both emotionally and physically. The fact that I have the capacity to do this is what scares me. I know the feeling when he looks up from inside, stretches, and says not today, but soon. Glad you're okay OP, maybe there's hope for me yet. I'm the third of 4 children in our family. I don't remember everything, but with all certainty I can say that through all of my life, I haven't ever been loved, not in the sense that I wasn't tended to or cared for, which I was, but in the sense that I don't feel the love that I should be feeling from my parents. Every single day I watched as my elder sister was spoiled and loved to bits by my father, while my brother was my mother's favorite. My parents took care of me since I was the youngest. But then my youngest sister was born. There was a shift in priorities. My youngest sister became the favorite of both parents while my other siblings remained favorites as well. I was left alone in the house so frequently that if you were a neighbor it wouldn't surprise you to see me alone while my family was out, bonding. I wanted attention. I wanted love. I wanted to confront them, but I hid my feelings and acted happy. I was so used to acting happy that it became a habit for me to smile at people to hide my true feelings. TLDR, I'm the black sheep of our family. I am so sorry. I feel bad just reading your post. I was lied to a lot as a child by my family and friends. I've been betrayed a lot by friends as well. Basically, my burden is that I can't trust anyone for very long. I even distrust my best friend after about 2 days of not talking. It feels really bad not to be able to trust people who deserve it. Well dang. I've never really shared this, but frick it. My parents got into a crap storm when I was younger, around 11. I'm 21 now. They had a bad divorce, and she took half of his money. That sucks for my dad, but he did beat her, and he cheated on her. He has to pay her $10,000 in alimony a month for the rest of his life. That also sucks, but crap happens. My dad likes to do this hit move where he blames my mom for everything. For some reason he fails to see that he abused her emotionally and physically. He's content on leaving the USA in 5 years when my little sister turns 18. He's leaving so that he can stop paying my mom money. If he does go through with this, I will most likely never see him again. I'm pretty sure he's just ashamed and in denial about what he did to my mom. My mom is a wreck. Came from an abusive family and leapt right into an abusive marriage. She jumped right off the high dive into the deep end, and she loved it. She got addicted to drugs and did some pretty fricked up crap. Tried to kill herself. She became emotionally abusive to my father and her kids, which in turn caused him to turn on her. She became very depressed and shut down. She's ashamed and confused. She is now finally starting to get her confidence back, go make friends, and get her life back together, with some help from me, which I am incredibly proud of. My younger sister, age 14 at the moment, has completely shut my family down, and I don't know if it's because she's 14, or if she just hates us. Either way, no matter what I do, I just can't get her to trust me and let me help her. My other sister, whom I've failed to mention, is 20 and was addicted to Xanax. She now lives with my grandma and is doing incredibly well. Good on you, Hillary. Unfortunately, no matter what I did, I just could not help her, which is okay, just gets at me sometimes. This is what burdens me, man. Hope all is well with you. Dog, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.